Welcome back to our Pokemon Labs League Challenge. This is round 2. I'm Arnie Wolf, joined by Dennis Geisler and our Squab and Arceus, sitting here judging you.
As always.
Get ready to be confused because we have two Bryans ready to play. It's Brian Perez and Brian Collins. Which you're going to see Brian Perez is going to be on the left with that Dragapult, Archaludon, Rillaboom, Volcarona, Sneasler, and Grimmsnarl. And Brian Collins on the right. There we go. With a very interesting team. Hatterene, EDD Female, Torkoal, Gallade, Mousehold, and Farigiraf. But the thing with this Scizor is it is High Horsepower, Psychic Fangs, Sunny Day, and Trick Room. Very unusual.
Yeah, holding the Power Lens, which does basically nothing other than having the speed stat. Which is an interesting setup here for that.
It's like reverse choice scarf, in a way.
Yeah, it kind of is.
But another thing I want to point out, too, which is interesting, is a Archaludon with Stamina, not in Rain. It's Power Herb, Stamina. And Rillaboom's got loaded dice, so you've got Bullet Seed instead of Wood Hammer. So A, you're not going to take recoil damage, and B, you can boost your Archaludon in certain situations in order to just get that boosted defense. So it's an interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm always on the side of Stamina Archaludon. I always, every time I see it, I'm like, oh, I really like Brian's trainer card. I like those little Smeargles. They're so cute.
And there is Brian's lead with the Gallade and Indeedee, and Grimmsnarl and Volcarona on Brian's side. No, it's Brian Perez on the left with that Volcarona. No, and Brian right with standard Trick Room lead. I think this is an interesting case.
Well, I'm so intrigued on how this is going to go, because the Volcarona could go for a Quiver Dance, and despite Trick Room's going to get up this turn.
Yeah.
But despite Trick Room getting up, it does make you a little bit bulkier against a lot of Brian's Pokemon. If you have the Quiver Dance going, makes you do more damage, obviously. And the Grimmsnarl can get screens up, but something we were talking about beforehand, Farigiraf has Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs breaks screens.
Yeah. Honestly, I like the idea of just going for a double protecting plus Spirit Break, because I believe you force the Gallade into a Wide Guard and you force the Indeedee into a Trick Room, so you can take damage before switching. But we are going to see Indeedee swap out, which is interesting, because I thought we were going to go ahead and go into Torkoal. So I guess they're banking on Gallade to go for the Trick Room, but I feel like just doubling up in that turn would have been a better play. Setting up screens. Sure, it's good.
I mean, if this turn works for Brian, then it's genius. Honestly, it's a really good turn for Brian.
Yeah, I feel like if you were Brian Perez,
Torkoal's now in basically for free.
Yeah.
With Trick Room up, no damage taken. Gallade didn't take any damage. You have super effective damage against the Arch now.
That was just a good play.
Light Screen is up, so they will take a little bit less damage on Brian Perez's side.
I don't know what honestly, I'm shocked we didn't see the Volcarona just go for an attack that turn. I feel like you need, if you're up against Trick Room, there's a Torkoal in the back. I feel like you need to just prepare for the stall game. But I don't know if you saw that. I wouldn't be surprised for Archaludon Protect, yeah. And then just
I am excited to see how much damage this Torkoal does. I'm a big Torkoal fan. I really want to see it do a bunch of damage here.
I think this is going to get at least 75%.
Remember, it is halved damage because of the light screen.
This is going to do a lot.
And let's see it.
It's choice specs, by the way. Keep that in mind. Oh, the critical hit!
That's certainly going to pick up the knockout there.
Oh my goodness!
Oh man, that is a lot of damage.
I think if you have Rillaboom in the back, this is without a doubt the turn to bring it in. And
it's a loaded dice Rillaboom.
Yeah, this is an interesting set, because even with that, Stake Up Sword on Gallade is still going to knock out. I believe it's going to knock out Archaludon. It'll come close. So who do you fake out?
You have to fake out the Torkoal.
Actually, here's the play I like.
You have to fake out the Torkoal or you lose both your Pokemon right now.
Or go for Terrifier High Horsepower, because I think that Gallade swapping to there's no way that Gallade does not switch
That's
here.
Actually probably... That is actually probably true.
I think that's just the safest play for Brian. You're like, yeah, and then you double up into the Torkoal slot, because you might survive, especially Terrifier.
You still take a lot of damage, but you are more likely to not immediately lose the game.
And there is that swap out.
That makes sense. Indeedee coming in now. Gets that Psychic Terrain back up. and means that Torkoal is going to certainly get its second eruption off here.
And there is Brian Perez's Terra. It is that fire into Rillaboom, so it will be able to resist an interruption from the
And do keep in mind, it is a little bit less specially bulky of a Rillaboom than we sometimes get. Doesn't have the Assault Vest. I don't think anything's actually holding the Assault Vest on this team, even though they've got two typical Assault Vest holders.
Interruption coming on out here through the light speed. It still does an insane amount of damage! Our Chaladon just hangs on.
That would have gotten a double knockout without the light screen against the resist Rillaboom and the neutral Archaladon.
That is...
But crucially for Brian Perez, the Archaladon does still take the hit, and that means that the Power Herb Electro Shot is going to go into the Torkoal, does some good damage, and I believe, yeah, the Rillaboom's going to be able to miss the Torkoal and not pick up the rest of that damage, actually.
Not great. I actually really like the switch out of Rillaboom here to Volcarona. The reason I like that is just because...
a lot of conditions on the field. There are 5 things listed on the page.
I don't think I've ever seen more than that in all my years of playing Pokemon. But I like the switch out into Volcarona because there's the big thing here is you want to protect our Chaladon to stall it out of the Trick Room, and then Volcarona could make use of the Sun. It will probably... Volcarona is very specially defensive, and it'll probably take a order Terrifier choice specs in the Sun, at least decent enough to where it'll survive. And then you could just start spamming your Heat Waves and then partnering it up with our Chaladon. But I think you switch and protect if you're Brian Perez.
Yeah, the Torkoal does switch out. Nice call on that then for Brian Perez.
Gallade is a very interesting play. I actually think that's the right play, because if the switch out, which was inevitable, was happening, you now have Wide Guard and it's just getting rid of NDD. You kind of force yourself into a Terra Blast situation without having Terra Blast available. I mean, like, you're not going to do it. And the Psychic's still going to do a good-ish amount.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's better than I was expecting.
That was honestly better than I was expecting, but it is in the terrain, so. Yeah, the Volcarona really can't do anything against the skill 8. I wasn't thinking too hard about it a moment ago, but now, yeah, that's a real problem for this Volcarona. And, I mean, the Archaladon's on low HP. The Rillaboom, frankly, doesn't... It doesn't take hits that well.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult for Brian Perez to get out of this. And for Brian Collins, it might just be how far can you do this with just 3 Pokemon without showing your 4th.
And I think the first up Psycho Cut, I don't even think it needed that crit.
I don't know if it needed the crit, but the second crit of the game was certainly gotta hurt.
And Psychic with the 4 HP definitely
I would be shocked if it did not deal 4 HP of damage.
That would have been really crazy.
I don't know that... It has been a very, very long time since I've seen a move do less than 4 HP of damage. And now it's just the Rillaboom. I don't think it's going to be able to do anything here.
I mean, it's at 100. Got terrain, but I don't think so.
I think it's going to be able to knock out one of these 2
forfeit.
Pokemon, but yeah, I think it's fine for Brian to just forfeit here and
move on to game 2. I think
move
the
on to game
strategy
2.
Again, I feel
after this game, I need to like go back and do like a running tally of how many times I just say Brian.
The supercut of us just going Brian. I think Brian Perez, the play that I think the most crucial stake in that match was not going for Heat Wave and Spirit Break right away. That would have gotten rid of the Gallade if you went for Heat Wave and Spirit Break into the Gallade slot, because it does force Brian Collins to either follow me and Wide Guard. Like, if you Wide Guard, then the Gallade goes down. If you follow me, then the NDD, it goes down. So one of the 2 setters goes down, and then you could stall out from there. Go for the light screen, lose the Grimmsnarl. That's fine. Go into your Rillaboom, fake out. If the NDD is lost, and if not, you could just go for the Terrifier, take a hit, high horsepower. I think that Brian didn't even bring in the wrong Pokemon, per se. I think it was just a wrong turn 1 that gave Brian Collins a bigger advantage.
But I think that's the tough thing about playing against a player like Brian Collins, is that, I mean, you know this guy has played so much of this team and this archetype. And so you have to know that Brian Collins could have something different cooking up in game number 2.
Yeah.
And if you, as Brian Perez, pick something a little wrong, you could get steamrolled just as easily.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's always the difficult thing, playing against a player like this.
I don't like the lack of... Because Rillaboom with that Terra, I think, is super useful. It was thinking that it's resets terrain, and that's a reason why I've considered...
Terrain is really important.
Yeah.
I think, well, and I do think that because it's loaded dice, it's not super bulky, it isn't a fantastic matchup.
But even then,
But it is still important.
Yeah,
I think
like-
it's still important to have around.
I think if your goal... I actually don't mind the Dragapult. I think Dragapult's a very good lead into Trick Room, because, or at least Side Spam, because you can just U-turn out onto Indy, and it either has to... If it's Terra's, it's grass, so it's still going to take a good chunk. But then after that, I feel like going into Rillaboom would have been nice. If you could just go for the double up onto the Indy, go into Rillaboom, and now you've got control of terrain, you've got Fake Out, Stall, you've got a lot more options, so I don't like the lack of Rillaboom on Brian Perez's side. I do think U-turn's kind of a given here for the Dragapult. You just gotta get that Indy out, and I think if Brian, you're like, alright, cool, follow me, Dire Claw, I'll give it a go. Gallade will be able to start sweeping with Torkoal on the next turn, and I think that's... I don't see any way that doesn't just steamroll the rest of Brian's after that Trick Room is set up, even if you sacrifice the Indy.
It's gonna be tough. I really don't know what the play is for Brian Perez. It's gonna be the Protect from the Stealer immediately. I mean, you do have to be worried about just like a raw Indeedee Psychic picking up a knockout. At the same time, I mean, this U-turn here isn't gonna do an insane amount of damage. Yeah, it doesn't pick up the KO, that's for sure.
I think it would have with the Rocky Helmet. I'm sorry, with the Dire Claw.
Oh, yeah, certainly. It absolutely would have picked up the KO with the Dire Claw. But I think that would have been totally fine for Brian Collins being able to then switch in whatever else. Just for free. And now the problem is Gallade is going to get that Trick Room up now.
Unless I was gonna say unless there's a shock play of a Psycho Cut on turn 1, I think that the Trick Room is now. It's a very, very good position. This Sneasler is Stellar Terra as well, so it's basically sacrificed at this point.
Yeah, Sneasler is done. Like, a Psycho Cut into that slot is the freest, and especially since Grimmsnarl's on the field now.
Yeah,
so a Psycho Cut into that slot is the freest attack of all time.
I think I understand at least a little bit of the strategy. Go into Archalon and get your stamina boosts with Reflect. The thing is, it doesn't really matter. Sacred Sword's and you don't really have... You have Fake Tears. I would have liked to see if you had Thunderwave. Thunderwave your own Mon, and now you're faster, you know? But in this case, Torkoal, there's nothing that resists except for Dragapult, and Dragapult is still going to take a heck of a lot of damage here. So
yeah.
I feel like the Torkoal is just free to just get the snowball going. I know it's sun, but metaphorically, start snowballing. And Psycho Cut doesn't do a ton on
That is a lot less damage than I would have thought.
Doesn't really matter if the Fence Boot Sacred Sword, but still.
It does get the Spirit Break off onto Gallade, which does not pick up the knockout. It gets very close, but doesn't get there. The problem is now that you have given Torkoal free reign. I mean, you can get your Light Screen up this turn, but you are basically sacrificing either Reflect or Light Screen at this point to Torkoal. To Torkoal, who is now about to click the funny button.
Funny button. What's also unfortunate is there's no priority on Brian Perez's side. Another reason Rillaboom was a really good choice, because you could have just been able to chip out that Gallade, and then, then you could possibly set the light screen. I would have liked to set the light screen, but at that point, like, it wouldn't really matter, just because, like, Torkoal is still going to be able to pick up the knockout on Archaludon at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, it's inevitable. So, even with this light screen, I think we're going to see a double.
It's probably going to be pretty close to a double knockout here. The Eruption, full damage. It was a crit last time on the Grimmsnarl, and Grimmsnarl does take the hit. Archaludon does not, but Grimmsnarl does take it with 17 HP remaining. Problem is, Gallade will then get the Sacred Sword off, and that should absolutely pick up the Grimmsnarl. So you do still get the double knockout in the turn, but you get the moral victory of Grimmsnarl taking the hit.
And at this point, I think Brian Collins is free to just win. I do not see an out for Brian Perez here. You've got, if you just go for another Eruption partnered with a Sacred Sword, or sorry, Psycho Cut into Dragapult, that's going to get rid of the Dragapult. Even Sneasler protects, and Sneasler is fragile where it won't be able to
Sneasler
just
can try to quintuple protect or whatever that'll get you out of Trick Room, but you're still going to eventually get knocked out whenever you have to.
And I think like just a full health Terrifier, Torkoal Eruption, Voice Specs and Sun. It is not going. Nothing. Neither one of these two is taking out.
We're done here.
If the Sneasler survives, it's got a hidden focus touch. No, it doesn't. The Dragapult takes a good 4/5.
Dragapult eats those.
But the Psycho Cut gonna wrap
it absolutely does not eat the Psycho Cut, though, and Brian Collins wins the Battle of the Bryans very handily.
You know, I was talking with my friend the other day, and we were talking about Psy Spam, how it's kind of falling out of fashion. I think it's coming back a little bit, in a different form than it used to. I think Torkoal obviously is still a play, but it's a more hyper-aggressive Psy Spam now, which we'll see on Brian's here. But.
Yeah, and I just think that there's so many ways that you can take Psy Spam right now, where it's like you could go the fast in DD mail route.
Yes.
You can do this kind of more traditional route and go way harder into Trick Room. I mean, we didn't see the Hatterene at all in this set, but that is certainly something that is able to participate in that on that side of things.
I also really like the Mousehold here because it's Population Bomb, and it is such a good Pokemon to keep in the back, because not only does it have redirection in case you need to like immediately change your plan for Torkoal, but you also have a really fast mode with a very damaging move with Population Bomb. You just got to worry about Ghost and Steel types, and other than that, Torkoal's gonna be able to handle a good chunk of those as well. So it's a really nice partner for Trick Room as your fast option, essentially.
Yeah, no, I like this team a lot, and I think there's a lot of room for Psy Spam to succeed in the next couple of weeks at those regionals.
We'll definitely see.
In any case, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be back for round number 3. Don't go anywhere.